All right, I generally don't pay attention to things that the media is saying because it's a waste of time. But I'm making a couple of exceptions here just to make a point about how brazenly dishonest and disingenuous they continue to be. Not as a monolith, but because I guess there are probably some good journalists, if that's not an oxymoron. There are some people out there who probably are interested in truth and want it to come out. But if they are, they probably aren't working for the networks or working for these larger venues that are pretty much going along, pretty much just bought off, or maybe more accurate to say they're co-conspirators with the state and with other powerful entities. Okay, so this is a seemingly innocuous, non-ideological article about. The title is "It's Out of Control," and I talked about this in a prior video about the whole idea that there's all these passengers on airlines that are just behaving so badly these days, and something must be done about it. And so I made reference. This was the article that I made reference to, but this is an article I happened to come across, happened to read. Doesn't usually happen. I usually avoid these kinds of things, as I said. But all those disclaimers aside, so anyway, there have been all these reports of unruly traveler behavior and fines topping $560,000. And there's a generic picture of people in a line in an airport with wearing their masks. And what this all boils down to is flight attendants. As I said, I recounted my own experience when I was on the flight that I was on from Atlanta to Denver en route to Rapid City, South Dakota back in February. And the flight attendant got on the case of some of the guys who were sitting next to me who didn't really speak much English, but who, I think they let their masks slip beneath their noses or something, and she yelled at them twice. She was, and if her behavior on this occasion is symptomatic of how how the staff on these airlines are behaving generally, then I don't blame passengers for saying, hey, don't talk to me that way, or whatever. But anyhow, that's not that whole notion that this could these kinds of incidents could be getting provoked by overly zealous flight attendants or flight staff snapping at passengers, for the stupid mask rules. That's not really covered here. But anyhow, I wanted to zero in on something in particular in this article. Flight attendant unions say their members have been insulted, shouted, and demeaned. Their members have been shouted by passengers. Good writing. Excellent writing, guys. Way to go. You guys are the best. You're just such wordsmiths, and your copy editors. They're so good at sussing out grammatical errors. Anyway, it's out of control, said someone for the union for flight attendants. Okay, so you think this is just an innocuous article about people behaving badly on flights or non-ideological. But then they have to throw this in. Screenings top 2 million a day, the highest since before. Blah, 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 was there that pandemic? Pandemic. Right. So, but the issue as to flight attendant stress after a year of jobs insecurity. Okay, I can be sensitive to that. I understand that not knowing whether you've got a job or not, can be stressful. But anyway, then they get to this. All right. Okay. And this is part of the template of how these kinds of articles are written. They bring in some supposed expert who's usually someone in academia, some professor somewhere, who's written a book about some subject, and who is, the floor is given to them as if they were an expert on this matter. And it's just, I've seen this template followed so many times in so many news articles, even though, as I said, lately I've been trying not to read them. But here's what this, okay, I'll just read it out loud, and then we'll have a good laugh about it together. But there isn't a single reason behind the incidents, according to Ryan Martin, a psychology professor at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, who has studied anger for about 2 decades. He said a sense of entitlement is a common thread in displays of anger, however. Okay. What we know, according to Professor Ryan Martin of the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, who wrote a book or something on this subject, what we know is that entitlement is correlated with anger, meaning the more entitled you are, the angrier you get. Said Martin, the author of Why We Get Mad, How to Use Your Anger for Positive Change. Okay, so the reason why we get angry is because we're entitled. The more entitled we are, the angrier we get. Isn't that an interesting way to summarize things? So another factor behind disruptive behavior could be readily available examples such as videos online, people acting out. We've seen lots of examples. We've seen lots and lots of example. Another typo. Way to go, guys. Way to go, CNBC writers. You're so primo. We've seen lots and lots of example of people losing their cool and having what I would call tantrums in the last year very publicly, Martin said. Some of that may have modeled a way of dealing with problems for people that really isn't a healthy, reasonable way to deal with problems. What I would call tantrums. Now, we know what he's talking about, right? We know he's making an oblique reference, maybe not really that oblique, to COVID dissidents, to people who are against lockdowns, people who are against mask mandates. They just, if they're against it, if they demonstrate, if they speak their mind, they're just throwing a tantrum, and they're angry because they feel entitled. Okay. And of course, they make a reference to January 6th somewhere in this article as well. But anyway, let me see if I can find where that is. No. Where's the thing? I know it's there somewhere. But anyhow, I just find that it's pretty interesting that this university professor would say that you're angry because you're entitled. When you're angry, when you express anger, and of course the anger is about having to wear masks, the anger is about having to obey these unconstitutional mandates of one kind or another. If you speak your mind and express your anger, you're, one, throwing a tantrum, and number two, you are entitled. Now, I have a strong suspicion that, okay, here we go. The agency has put a zero intolerance policy after a series of politically motivated incidents said around the time of the riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Of course they have to throw that in, don't they? January 6th, insurrection, right-wing violence. But anyhow, here's my thing about what this professor says about anger being a sign of being entitled. I just have a strong suspicion that here, let me turn it around to myself here. I don't know if you can see my whole face or not, but I'm just going to say I have a strong suspicion that if some article had been written about people publicly expressing anger, if this had been written, say, in early 2017 after Hillary Clinton's loss, I doubt that we would have had a university professor quoted in a CNBC article saying all of this anger is just a sign of how entitled people are. You know, the more entitled you are, the more likely you are to express anger. Would we have ever heard any professor, any talking head, anyone, any pundit say anything like that after Trump beat Hillary? No. We would hear them say, "This is righteous anger. You know, you should speak out," and they would find some way to demonize the people who were on the other side. But because here the anger is being directed against, is being expressed by those people on planes who are being, who are expressing anger. Maybe in some cases, they're over the top. Maybe in some cases they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. But maybe in a lot of cases they've been provoked by, snippy, condescending staff, just because who are overly zealous. Just like the pregnant lady in Dallas Catholic Church who was kicked out of church because she took her mask off for a second because she couldn't breathe very well, and she was sitting apart from everybody else and doing the social distancing thing, but they still kicked her out. And the police backed it up and said, "Well, this is private property." Anyhow, that it would seem to me that it's very transparent. Their disingenuousness, the disingenuousness of the supine press, is transparent as hell. That's all I have to say about this article. Let me know what you think. My name's Andy Nowicki. You can check out my work at altrightnovelist.com.